Hi, I'm cutting in with an introduction before the introduction to let you know that we're going to be doing a stream this Saturday. That is in 2 days, May the 7th, from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., streaming bad video game cartoons and goofing over them to raise money for reproductive rights. Details are not set in stone just yet. All we have is the time, like we said, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, May the 7th, and the place. That's twitch.tv/Duckfeed.tv. Come hang out. Give money if you can, and let's try and do some good together.
This episode of Watch Out for Fireballs is brought to you by our patrons, just like every episode. Specifically, it's patrons like Big Daddy Meatbone, Calum, Ethan Y, Dan from Dayton, and Andrew C. Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who supports us at patreon.com/DuckFeedTV. We appreciate you. My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a Games Club podcast.
And this week we are talking about The Beginner's Guide, which is a first-person narrative game developed and published by Everything Unlimited Limited. I love that studio name. For the PC in 2015.
And you may hear an 80s movie trailer style record scratch in your head right now and be like, wait a minute. I thought these two rotund gentlemen were going to do Fear and Hunger.
Nope.
No. In case you just missed the announcement at the end of the last episode and everything, we subbed that out for a different pick, which we're going to do next month.
Yeah.
Fear and Hunger didn't work for us, so we bounced off it kind of play-wise and thematically and didn't do... it's on us. We did not do looking into it enough. It just looked neat.
Mm-hmm.
We should have looked into it more, but we just want to assure everybody. So we've worked out with the patron we're doing another one of their picks, and it seems like a good idea to remind everybody about that process, because here it is in action.
Yeah. So when people back at that tier, we reach out and say, hey, what are your choices? And we ask for 3 of them. And that gives us options, right? To figure out what's going to work best, especially if we're looking to fit in something relatively soon. We usually schedule in a few months out. And just in case something like this comes up, having a fallback is really, really nice. This happens to be the first time that it was kind of operationalized, but boy, was it good to have.
Yeah. And so there's just no, I don't want anyone to feel like we screwed over anybody.
Right.
The patron is happy. And if you decide to patronize us at that level, this is the first time this has happened. You don't have to worry about your picks getting subbed out.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting, this was not the sub.
No.
Pick. That's going to be next month, and that's going to be Terra Enigma.
Yep.
This is something that we put in on the schedule because we had to, it's something we've wanted to do for a while. And quite frankly, it's very short. Yep. And we were changing it up at the last minute after putting in some time into Fear and Hunger. So we need something that would fit the schedule.
Yeah.
Sometimes that kind of flexibility is very good for us.
It really is. So we appreciate everybody staying the course with us and granting us a little bit of grace and flexibility. It is really good in circumstances like this. And we hope you enjoyed this episode about The Beginner's Guide, a game that I don't hear a lot of people talking about.
Yeah. A game also that I absolutely love.
Yes.
And a game, just while we're doing disclaimers, there's 2 really important disclaimers to this. One is that is pretty standard, which is that this is a game that relies on its narrative. If you have any intention of playing this or any interest, it's good to play it before we talk about it.
Yes.
I think that knowing what happens and what it's about, and more importantly, hearing our discussion around its themes, is going to impact enjoyment.
Yes.
Of it. So that one's the obvious one. The less obvious one that I want to throw out there is that I think the beginner's guide in the world of walking sims is about a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think one of the things I love about it is that, to me, this feels like it's throwing a lot of ideas in the air for you to think about. It is not an equation to be solved.
No.
And it will be, so we're going to go into this, and I have thoughts about several things I feel like this game is speaking to and is about. It is textually antithetical to this game to definitively pin something on it.
Yeah.
The game actively and narratively, like textually, resists that to pin a definitive tail on this. So just know we go in this, we're going to talk about stuff that we think this is about.
Yeah.
Your opinions may differ. Davey Reedon, who made this game, may have had different intent.
Yeah.
This game is about, on one level, among many things, how much or how little that matters.
Right.
And whether it's appropriate at all. This is the most antagonistic thing I think we've done.
Yeah.
Actively antagonistic to the act of creating this episode about this game.
Yeah, gonna feel a little self-conscious overanalyzing this work that is partially about the dangers of overanalysis.
Yeah, or the dangers of analysis.
Yeah.
Definitely the dangers of overanalysis, but it's there's an argument, like I think there's a read in this that is pretty hostile to our entire steez.
Yeah.
And I'm not calling out Davey for that. Like, Davey seems great.
Yeah.
But it's just it's a perspective, right? Like, it's something to think about, and it does make you feel a little weird as a critic to just be like, yeah, this game kind of doesn't like us. That's okay.
Yeah.
That not everything has to like us.
Yeah. It's critics and creators, if we can be called critics, natural enemies, cats, dogs, police, cops, robbers, Sylvester the cats and Tweety birds,
Yeah. And Sylvester the Stallones fighting each other all over. And that relationship between creators and audiences as well.
Yes.
Not just critics. So you're not off the hook either. Listeners, this is a game that it wrestles with some pretty antagonistic feelings. I think.
Yeah.
We mentioned David Reedon. David Reedon is one half of the creative team, the original creators band, the Stanley Parable, and this is his first game to come out after that.
Yes. This is presented as a collection of small, incomplete games created by a person named Coda, a fictitious friend of Reedon, of Davey, who Reedon thinks is a game genius. Yes. And this is narrated by Davey Reedon himself. Here, he is the voice that you're going to hear, kind of walking you through this and explaining, kind of what's going on, a little bit about the process behind this, but also kind of what the little games make him feel, and what he thinks they say about his friend.
Yes. There's a couple of things that are worth unpacking there.
Yep.
One, not everybody thinks to this day that Coda is fictitious. Coda is clearly fictitious.
Right.
There's no argument around it. It's possible that, Coda is based on a true story.
Maybe. Of
some kind, but it's in the text that this is fake. This Blair Witched a bunch of people.
Yes.
When it came out. And that Blair Witchening continues to Davey Reedon in this, who is also a fictionalized version of himself.
Right.
In this. The game is playing with your expectations of the opposite of that. Begins with, I'm Davey Reedon. You may know me from the Stanley Parable. Here's this, this thing. It is juking your expectations in a very specific way that some people are not entirely on board with. To me, the fictionality of this is clearer than day.
Yes.
But it is still, I was surprised to find in discussions, it is still a thing.
Yeah.
That some people have not bought that yet.
I'm surprised 7 years later that is still the case. Like it seems like the better discussion to have would be, how does this reflect what Davey actually feels? Like, yes, this is a fictional situation, but
that's a horrible thing to think.
Yep.
Because it's not our job to try to figure out what Davey actually feels. As we'll get into it. So it's weird. There's a lot there. But when we say Davey Wreden, there's the creator Davey, and then there's the character Davey that's in the game.
Yeah.
It's important to differentiate those.
Yes.
And, when I've seen other people talk about this game, they come up with, kind of cutesy differentiators. We'll just say like the creator and the narrator. Probably.
Yeah.
But that's the level of meta bullshit we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So that's another thing too, if you have to decide whether that's your thing or not.
Yes.
This is super my thing. Like this game particularly is my thing, but some people are just actively put off by that. And, I get it.
By in the notes, I differentiated them. The creator I call him Wreden, and in the game, I call him Davey, just because that's what he uses in the game. So,
this is a walking sim. So like Stanley Parable, they're really mechanically light. You walk through these guided experiences with the narration happening. You do a mild interaction with some items.
Yeah.
But mechanically, it's as simple as it can be.
Yes. Yeah. So this opening section is not really, it's not going to go into a whole lot of detail because there's not a lot of detail to go into. And because of that, like, we're probably going to have to blow the spoiler horn a little bit early here, because of time, but also because, like, as we talk about the aesthetics of this, it would not make sense to kind of obscure a huge part of the impact behind, like, being coy boys here, so if you intend to play this might be the time I say get off, because it's cheap. You probably got it in a bundle at some point, and it's only an hour and a half. It'll probably be shorter than this episode.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's a movie.
Yeah.
Like, treat it like a movie, in terms of a single sit down experience.
Yeah.
So on the surface, what this actually tells the story of, without thinking about what it says about anything outside of the story, is the story of a shitty friend.
Yeah, it's a very bad friend.
A very bad friend and a very insecure, pathetic little man.
Yeah.
The Davey, the character in this, over-examining the creative output of a friend and inserting a lot of himself into it.
Yes, and kind of trying to take credit for it by proxy, to a degree, and ultimately committing a huge act of betrayal in publishing these.
The game you're playing.
Works.
That's
the game.
The cool the artifact you have is his betrayal.
Yes,
there and is personally harming this person.
Smothering him, right? Like, like completely pushing Coda away from wanting to create at all, right? Because suddenly something that was a natural part of the process, which is downtimes, which is times when it's hard, became crises because he had this other person leaning on him this entire time in this extremely asymmetrical and unfair way.
Yeah. Yep. That is the big reveal about this. The way it articulates is, and I'll, just, again, this is subjective. First time through this, I definitely felt was like pretty devastating.
Yeah.
Really sad. My second time through it, knowing the twist, there's a lot more foreshadowing and groundwork.
There's a lot of track laid for this, which makes me think that if I was just playing this for the first time for the show, I would have to go back and do it again, because I would not have been able to call out the things that they do to foreshadow it without knowing where it was going to go.
Knowing where it goes makes this, I mean, it plays fair.
Yes.
As far as something with a twist. It also was really interesting because the way that I think this game has kind of flexible messaging and such. The first time I played this, immense sympathy for the character of Davey.
Yes.
Second time I played it,
no patience.
A lot of disgust.
No patience.
No patience. And the entire time, not just during the reveal.
Right.
The overwhelming sense I got was pathetic contempt.
Yeah.
for this man, even early on. And that's not very kind of me. But that is, I think it's speaking to the effectiveness of the game, that knowing what you know, playing through it, like there's a lot of depth to the crapulence of this. You know, and when I say crapulous, I don't just mean the moral act of putting out the compilation, which sucks. I mean also the just like,
the interpersonal violence,
interpersonal violence, and just the just sad sack imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You know, like, which again, I get it. That's a very relatable feeling. This is it being portrayed as naked and grotesquely, you know, as it can be.
Yes.
So even if that's a natural feeling, and I see it myself sometimes, and people listening see it in themselves every once in a while, I think this game does an excellent job of portraying exactly how ugly that feeling is and outlook is.
Yeah, and how destructive
it's an extremely
it is.
ugly character.
Yeah,
Davey.
Yeah, no, just man, he comes across as incredibly small in this, and intrusive. Just the way that he doesn't observe any kind of boundary. Just like, I don't know, just again, knowing what's coming up. Like, I think a huge part, yes, I'm a different person now than I was when I initially played it, but like, you know, no, it's kind of like reading somebody's diary before and after they decide to kill a bunch of people, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not drawing an equivalency there, but
you got the secret ending.
Well, when he steps into the beam, you know, we've got no way of knowing what that means.
Yeah.
But just like knowing the way that this is going to go, definitely, you're always carrying around what he would eventually do, or what you would eventually learn about him in things that you otherwise would have been more patient with, extended more grace for, things like that.
And I also, to me, like, you know, being a different person when I play this too, I just feel like, changed in a way that I personally like about myself, about being less, like the kind of like sad sack. I feel more mature than I did when I first played this.
Yeah.
And I feel like I see less of myself. Like, there's still shitty parts of me that do what Davey, the character, does in this. But I feel like between this time and when I first played it, I've been able to like work on some of that shit.
Yeah. No.
You know, and that feels really good. Like it's kind of interesting to play a game that related to a version of my worst self 5 or 6 years ago that I've made movement on.
Yeah. No, you know? I definitely, looking at Davey, you know, now and thinking about where I was way back then, and God, 2015 doesn't feel like a long time ago, but it was, definitely, walking open wounds to a certain degree. And not just that, you know, just kind of like just constantly open and you know, just raw stuff like that. A lot of work to be done or whatever. But the way that Davey in this just doesn't listen and cannot see, and did not recognize that he was hearing what he needed to, but he just decided to keep, you know, pressing on and not actually analyze in himself, right?
It's this very specific combination of self-focus and lack of self-awareness that feels contradictory, but actually happens all the time.
Oh yeah.
Where, you know, somebody who is very heavily into an, you know, imposter syndrome or something like that, like they are, like, Davey made this everything about himself in this.
Davey projects so much that he might as well have bought a drive-in theater.
Exactly. You know, it's that kind of like, I make everything about myself, but I don't understand why that's crappy and wrong because I'm not thinking about it enough.
Yeah. Or I don't realize that I'm doing it.
Yeah. Is basically age 23 to 36, 35. You know, like I did that for like a decade.
Yeah.
And it sucked. I didn't really realize it sucked. But I've been on this kick recently where I've just been like, man, I wish I had wasted all that time with that kind of like sad sack, Gary-centric self-loathing that I did for, I know, like a third of my fucking life.
So
Like
far.
I'm going to die. And I did that for like 50, the small ball penny ante horse shit for 15 years, like ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I just wish and this to me is a real statement on the many things this is. It feels like it's sympathetic to that, like is a very human thing to do, but it is a condemnation and portrayal of it as ugly as it possibly can be.
Yes.
Of just not self-aware, but also constantly thinking about yourself.
Yeah. That's a tragic combination.
Yes. Cannot even begin to imagine what this person I'm interacting with might think, even though on the surface you think that's exactly what you're doing. And it's very well observed in that way.
Yeah. Extremely well put together. Yeah. So we already talked about this, but people do definitely have different interpretations. I think that the worst possible way to read those would be to go to the Wikipedia page and look at the interpretations subheader, the H2 on there. It's a big list of reasons to get mad.
The same thing with the TV tropes,
right.
Section on this. Like this is a thing where people's interpretations of this are irritating to me sometimes. People do talk about this. So Davey Wreden did a big blog post after the Stanley Parable came out, talking about feeling conflicted on success.
Right.
There. Some people believe this is him talking to his younger self, or vice versa.
Right.
Sometimes literally like a Fight Club thing. Like this is about the success of the Stanley Parable. I think that that's probably informs this, but that's one of the things it could be about. I don't think it's the only thing.
Yeah.
This could be. And when people talk about it being like there's posts and such where people are literally like Coda is a Tyler Durden thing to him, and that feels like trying to solve a thematic work like an equation, which is never a great idea.
That feels like a clumsy metaphor to me, at least to say like X is Y versus X takes on shades of Y plus these other things. It just kind of, when I say clumsy, I guess I mean lacks kind of the nuance that I think is necessary. I think that it holds it in a state that it ought not be held in.
Well, it pins it down in like a cat way, like a Schrodinger's cat way. Yeah. Like, it shines the light on something to try to make it one thing as opposed to everything. When I was thinking about this game, I was creating a new type of guy in my head who just puts the word explained into YouTube and watches anything that pops up. Like explained or, solved or anything like that. And it's just like, yeah, let's solve it all, baby.
They just immediately feel like they have the worst hangover of their life the minute there is any narrative ambiguity.
Yeah, just immediately like what does this mean? Like must solve art.
I'll deconstruct
that kind of thing, and it's just I think that this game invites. Or the game doesn't do it, but people for whom that is a way to be are attracted to this game.
Yeah.
Because it's very tempting to be like, oh, no, it's actually these 3 dots represent this. And that is the clever trap that this game is playing, is that doing that makes you a fool.
Yeah.
The perspective of this game has contempt for.
Yeah. And who knows? Maybe could have put those 3 dots on one game and then Davey went and put them everywhere.
Unreliable narrator.
Yep.
We have no idea what's real in this, and then that's on top of the layer that nothing of it is actually real. It's great.
Yeah.
What a fun game to think about.
Something else that's great. I love how this really does a good job at being kind of a burn on the source engine.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially early on, just real good depictions of just kind of this clumsy outsider art level design. Using the source SDK, including one that is just DE dust, but with boxes everywhere,
altered a little bit.
Yeah.
That's real great. Wreden does a really good job with this, choosing to narrate himself.
Yeah,
it's a different skill set, right? Like acting versus game creation versus writing and the like. Does a wonderful job.
Yeah,
in this. Very endearing and friendly and inviting in the ways that when it needs to be, and then when, if you don't know the twist, the slow feeling of realizing something's wrong as the narrator, Davey, starts admitting something is wrong around the same time, is incredibly effective.
Yeah.
It's a very sad performance.
He really does lure you in with kind of that false innocence that is the result of obliviousness, But just made it like the good thing made entirely out of the bad thing, or the bad thing just piled into the form of the good thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Wonderful job.
Yeah. Like we said, though Reedon wrote that kind of essay about how he felt about the Stanley Parable, very little has actually been shared about his process behind this. Like, it was announced 2 days before it came out, and he's not like responded in any official way saying like, oh yes, this is what I was aiming for. He's been very satisfied to remain silent and to let this thing speak for itself.
Yeah, it would ruin it. And it would be contrary to the purpose of it.
100%.
Yeah. So he did have help with this. You can, this is by his own game company, but there's a credits and stuff. So there's music and artist and everything, of course.
No.
Will Pugh, who was the other half of the Stanley Parable, was not part of this. They were creating their own studio, Crows. They went on to make goofy comedy games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with Justin Roiland. Yeah.
Yeah. The sad heart of the Stanley Parable, the part of it that wasn't just funny.
Yes.
Went off to make this.
Mm.
And he went off to make Crows. And that's me engaging in the thing this game hates, of ascribing personality to that. But so far that is true. Davey has a new studio he's put together. My friend Carla, Fulbright alum, is working on their next game as well.
Ooh, neat.
And I'm excited to hear more about that when news comes out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very glad to hear it. This got split reviews. I think it existed in the shadow of the Stanley Parable. Honestly, for however ironic or appropriate as that may be. But the Stanley Parable is it's an understandable reference point because they are outwardly very similar. But also they're aiming for entirely different things. The Stanley Parable is, about games, and this feels a little bit more like it's about people.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. I personally, I love the Stanley Parable. We did that last year.
Yeah.
I love that game. It's very funny, and everything. It didn't break my heart. This game broke my heart, which is always going to give you a up a letter grade. Let's get into it. And like I said, we're going to talk about these individual games that he talks about, with the knowledge of what we know.
Yeah.
At the end. So when there's foreshadowing and stuff, we will call it out. And then I imagine when we get to the end, we'll just kind of talk about the things this game has to say.
Yes.
To kind of go through it. But high recommendation. Even at this point, you already know the twist. It'd still be worth playing. The way it articulates is great. Final third warning. Last chance. It's an hour and a half. Go play this game.
You must deny us 3 times.
Yes. Let's get into it.
Let's do. We begin with an introduction. Davey introduces himself, saying that this is about a series of events that took place between 2008 and 2011. And says we're going to be talking about games that his friend made, Coda. He met him in 2009, so a good portion of this kind of predates what Davey would have been around for. But he kind of starts right away saying like, oh yeah, in 2009, Davey was going through some personal stuff when he went to this game jam in Sacramento and met this person who he would barnacle onto.
Yes. So the idea is he's like, here's his first game, his early work. It's a Counter-Strike map, this desert town. And he added all these little glitchy boxes.
Yeah.
Throughout the game. And you get to play it. So we didn't, really explain this. We said it's a walking sim. This is going to be Davey teleporting us to these levels.
Yes.
That Coda made, these games that he made from game to game. What part of my affection for this? I love a compilation of fake games.
Oh yeah.
so much.
Your Sonic Dreams collection.
Games.
Yeah.
Yes. Retro Game Challenge. Anything that's a big collection of fake games is going to make me real happy.
Yeah.
So you just kind of wander around this. There's nothing to do. You're just listening to Davey talk.
Right.
And this is where he starts talking about how he uses these games to figure out like what they say about Coda.
Right.
He's like, this game there's not very much to it, but there are these little idiosyncratic personal touches, these little boxes and stuff that make this not just a Counter-Strike map, but a window into Coda.
Yeah. Just a glimpse at whatever whimsy he might have been feeling when he was putting this together. To me, this is very clearly this is Davey looking at somebody like fucking around and learning the tools palette in a in software. Yeah.
One of the reads of this game, and again, I don't 100% agree with this, even though it's something that has come up for me, but this is a caution against overreading.
Yeah.
Or what I am calling overreading, like bringing a lot of yourself into your interpretation of work and saying things are there that are not part of the text.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally what Davey is doing and is being villainized. And he's doing it right here, right from the start. Like this is clearly learning tools, and that's us also saying what it is. We don't know what it is.
No,
that's the point. But that would be my interpretation of it.
Yeah.
The character Davey is bringing himself into the character Coda's work.
Yeah. And to kind of bring a little bit more dimension to my read on that, the fact that this is so early on and it could still plausibly be a comedy. The humor coming from the distance between, the actual simple prosaic thing that this is and Davey's overread. I still read that as a joke. It still feels like it's easing into what this ultimately will be.
Yeah. It also is a really efficient way of setting up the premise of this. It's kind of like foreshadowing the punchline of the joke. Mm-hmm. If you catch on early on, they're like, oh, this isn't fucking these aren't meaningful boxes. You weirdo. Then that's the point.
Yes.
But the performance and the kind of semiotics and the tone get you to come along with it, or at least got me to come along with it.
Yeah.
The first time I played through it. He starts talking about, the character Davey did know the character Coda. He starts talking about things that he would have found out outside of his games, like starts referencing correspondence.
Yeah.
They had. And very importantly, says Coda never released anything.
Right.
He would release his games to his friends, to some of the people he knows, but would never put them out for everyone.
Yeah. Davey says that he's a recluse, that Coda is. I don't think that's true based on what we see. But saying like, oh, he had a joke. He renamed the recycle bin on his computer the important games folder, is what he said. Which again is clearly a joke, but there's kind of an implied injustice, I think, in what was lost as Coda
Davey
was
is
experimenting.
elbowing us in the ribs and being like, what kind of crap is that? Who does that? He make these little small games until 2011 he just stopped, and Davey thinks by collecting them and releasing Coda's games, he encouraged his friend to start creating again. That sounds ridiculous on the face, especially knowing what you know, but in the context, it's viable.
Yes.
Yeah. We go into a second game, came out in November 2008, Escape from Whisper. And this is, you're on a ship in a sci-fi zone that's undergoing an emergency. There's an alarm going off. You have a gun as you walk around, but there are no enemies and you can't reload. You can just shoot.
I loved when I emptied the clip and I tried to reload. Nope, that's all you had, bud.
Yep. Yeah. It a lot of times the narration will react to things that you do in this in a way that feels very Stanley Parable-esque.
Yeah. He says, maybe he thought the game was complete the way it is, and I think we should talk about his games for what they are rather than for what they're not. Yes.
Which is ironic.
Yes.
Huge hand tipping moment. You get to this point where there's a labyrinth on the ship. And Davey sounds like a huge arrogant asshole during this. He's like, I guess there's a labyrinth on the ship. I can't think of why this would be here, so I'm just going to skip you past it. And if you go back to Labyrinth, he goes, you can solve it if you want. It is solvable. And you go back through the Labyrinth. It's not complicated or bad in terms of mazes.
Wouldn't have taken a lot of time, even if you're not a maze
like
meister.
30-second, yeah. And immediately, he's just like, I can't think of the reason for this, so let's just skip past it.
Right.
Very deft.
Love that. And just from a critic's point of view, how many times I was like, oh yeah, just skip over this. This isn't the tedium of this isn't worth talking about. Yes. I don't have anything to say about this, so let's just move on. I get it.
Yeah, it's not important. When you get into the interpretation stuff about this around criticism, I think there's a real difference between like releasing something and altering it.
Yes.
Which is part of what lets me sleep at night in a world with a beginner's guide.
True.
With my job. You get to the engine room of this for the end, and a voice on the PA says, hey, if you step into this beam, it's going to turn off the whisper machine. And you step in it and you die. And Davey says, that was the original ending, but let me restore this bug that was in the original version of it. And it's this really beautiful little lyrical bug.
Yeah.
You step into this laser, and instead of dying, you just start floating upwards out of the map.
Yep. It's real peaceful. It's real heavenly, and Davey's narrating. He breaks the peace and offers all kinds of interpretations. Is this the grand perspective of the place that you have been? As you look at the very simple map you've walked through, is this supposed to be the afterlife? Right.
Yeah.
Which it's not intentional. It's just a bug that was there. That was there at first. The intention was what Coda actually released, but he reverted it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not good enough for Davey.
No.
We go on to another game released that month. This is called Backwards, where you're in this brick kind of maze, source maze,
Windows 98 screensaver maze. You're in.
Yeah. And this is like, Dear Esther, where it's revealing a poem to you as you walk through, but you can only walk backwards.
Right.
As you walk backwards, the geometry will change behind you, and will reveal this kind of poem about just the future being unwritten, uncertain.
Yeah. It's nice, just real simple. And Davey agrees. He says it's more focused and more complete than Escape from Whisper. It is very quick. And also he's not trying to work in another form. He's not trying to do mimic sci-fi shooters like he was in Escape from Whisper.
Yeah. This reads to me like when I first got into like art games and would download any art game. This was the kind of stuff that happened all the time.
Yeah,
around 2008.
The Path or what have you.
Yeah, like very similar. Mm-hmm. Yeah. December 2008, he releases, or still November, releases a game called Entering. Here.
Yeah, you're in the woods. You're walking on a path, and your sight is incredibly limited. Ring of dark around you, and you pass a sign that's on the ground that says "You are now entering." And as you pass it, the game ends. This is very funny to me. Davey says, "Sure, you're going to understand this after we go through a few more games."
Yeah. This is foreshadowing that he has backported his understanding, that he's, modded into these games for this to fit.
Yeah.
His kind of thesis. This goes into December 2008. Stairs. We get a title card at the beginning. This is nonsense in every direction around me. And you're on this great Lord Void.
151 Mew.
Yes. You have nonsense around you, referring to me. That is incorrect. Can we play a game outside of the bear? You're in this gray floored void surrounded by these tall structures with a stairway leading up them. Awesome thing that happens in this. If you walk to the end of, I don't know if you found this, you walk towards the buildings, Davey will say, I understand the impulse, but don't go over there. Like there's nothing over there.
Okay.
If you do it anyway, it plays a sound. Like you get to a certain place and you hear this kind of weird voice making a noise.
Okay.
Down there that like Davey's telling you to ignore. So not only is Davey excising parts of the games he does not think is meaningful, because that he doesn't get them, like the labyrinth, he's also actively steering you away from things he doesn't want to talk about,
even just in the narration.
in the narration. Like you literally, he's just like, yeah, you don't need to go down there. But if you do it anyway, like, and that's a little Stanley Parable DNA as well. But instead of getting the game accounting for it, you're getting the narrator explicitly not accounting for it in a work where the narrator is supposed to be talking about everything that's going on there.
Yeah, he's supposed to be explaining. Explain,
neat.
boy. Yeah.
Yeah, great little moment.
No, I never thought to disobey him.
He's very calming.
He is. Yeah.
Yeah. The Manchurian Candidate game by Davey Reed, where he's just like, hey, do some crimes.
Okay. Yeah.
And you're like, you're the boss.
Let's roll.
Who am I to argue with the guy who made Stanley Parable?
A very neat, a very neat little thing here as you're climbing the stairs, kind of the dream, the sleep paralysis sets in, and your movement slows to a crawl as you're climbing up the one staircase that is available to you. And eventually you don't stop entirely. I imagine somebody has put a drinky bird on their keyboard to walk forward and get through this. But and as you hit that minimum speed, the door at the top of the stairs opens up, but it is unreachable to you.
Yes. And Davey says, hey, I've instituted a cheat. If you press spacebar, you'll go back to normal speed. So you can see what's up there. Again, he's altering your experience of these things. Once you do, and you get up to the door at the top, it's this like beautiful little room with these floating text of game, like little one commonplace book, one sentence game ideas.
Yeah.
Here, some of these are real fun.
Yeah.
Like these look really creative and cool, just Ludum Dare style stuff.
Yeah. Just little concepts, sketchbook kind of things. And again, we get this kind of reading into Coda's personality, saying, Coda says he doesn't mind that people think of him as being cold and distant because he knows his inner life, that he is vibrant and compassionate. It's just a slow climb to see it, which is, I think, Davey very much trying to characterize his attempts to get to know this person he respects.
Yeah, it's totally possible Coda's not like that at all with anyone who isn't Davey.
Right.
Given that Davey is obnoxious as hell. There's also, one of the things I love about this game is it gives that plausible deniability. If you put a gun to my head and was like, hey, overread this game. Mm-hmm. Like, this game in particular does feel like him being in a creative rut.
Yeah.
Like a game about that. Like, Davey is wrong to overread in this case, but his interpretation comes off as sound. Mm-hmm. Like the idea of a staircase that as you walk up it, then you get slow and you can't reach your ideas.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's exactly about what Davey says it's about. And then that, of course, is, we don't know that because Davey's presenting it to us. So we don't know what alterations Davey has made.
Yeah.
Also, Davey's kind of condemning doing that in the first place. Like, it makes sense, though. So you can see how the fictional Davey would do it. You can see how it makes sense for the character to do it. And you can see yourself like, oh, like that's an interpretation I would make as well.
Yeah.
No,
it's there's evidence there. I can see how this metaphor would work visually, mechanically. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. This moves on to January 2009 with a game called Puzzle.
Yes. We get a title card that says Ready, Set, Fish. I have no idea.
Yep.
Yeah, but you walk through this kind of short winding hallway, and then you reach a door that has a lever on it. And Davey remarks, almost condescendingly, we found Coda's first puzzle.
Very condescendingly. Like,
he finally discovered that puzzles can be a thing in games, not just for jigsaws anymore.
Yep, good for you, little man. You can almost hear Davey saying.
Yeah.
And this puzzle is very... a very kind of basic puzzle that you find in games a lot.
Yeah.
You pull a lever to open a door, and then you have to close the door while you're on the other side to reveal the next lever.
Yes.
Davey reaches, it seems like you've got this dead end at this point after doing this. Davey has a lot to say about this puzzle as well. Mm-hmm. He's going to talk about that for the next few games. But he's like, it looks like you've reached a dead end, but check this out. And Davey modifies the game and removes the walls. Mm-hmm. And you see this beautiful, like almost unlimited sky full of these staircases.
Yeah.
Going everywhere. And it's very easy then at this point to get wrapped up in Davey's interpretation while forgetting the very key point that he made it. Like, you were never meant to see this.
Right.
He had to change the game.
Mm-hmm. He had to alter this. And who knows? Maybe this is, again, thinking about this from a development point of view, maybe this is something Coda made to like test and see what drains resources when you're playing a Source Engine game, right? Like, okay, if it's, we're inside this little structure. What if I put all this incredibly complex architecture outside? Will that cause things to slow to a chuck? Like, what's my rule set here? Right. And then Davey draws into this conclusion saying like, oh, this game and the game with the staircase and the room full of ideas at the top, they're thematic opposites. They convey these opposite ideas. A dull exterior with a fantastic interior as contrasted with a dull interior, those hallways, and the fantastic exterior, the sky full of stairs. Right.
Yeah. And it feels sound on first listen.
Right.
You know, he says, as a player, you don't know what you're missing out on, like outside of these walls. You know, if your role here is not to understand, then what is it?
So he's justifying his own mode of playing games, right? You know, just like my role has to be valid because otherwise, what is it? Right? Is there any other path for me? And also kind of planting the seeds for this FOMO. It feels like his intense desire to not have anything hidden from him.
And I also play games and approach art with an intense desire to understand.
Same.
Like I don't, walk away from a movie being like, well, I can't know what that's about. And it's not for me to think about,
that's none of my business.
That whole thing is none of my business. That's not, I don't agree with that. It's one of the ideas contained within here, but I don't necessarily want to ascribe it to like real Davey Wreden.
Right.
At all. Because I think this game is full of flexible interpretations. Isn't about a lot of things.
Right.
The next game is Exiting on January 2009. You're in the Dark Woods again. This time the sign says you're now exiting instead of entering. And this is where Davey first, puts forth his grand theory of all Coda's games being connected.
Yeah.
The order of their creation tells this story. There's this larger meaning we won't be able to grasp unless we play all the games. And he'll start talking about the kind of theme that he's going to read into this soon.
Yeah. And this is just a kind of a critical thinking thing. The second you start feeling that all stories are actually part of the same story, it's just one big story. That way dragons lie, my friends.
Yeah. It's the tricky part is people can and do that for fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like what is it? I'm going to set together and put together a Hyrule timeline for fun, like make this work like an equation. I personally don't find that fun, but there's a way to do it that isn't actively harmful.
Yeah.
There's also 100% a way to do it that is actively harmful though. And pretty obnoxious and
which is throwing your reads unrelentingly at somebody who's supposedly your friend.
Yeah. Interpersonally, and also there's a way that's kind of just critically bereft as well.
Oh yeah.
You know, where it feels like you're kind of playing, you're playing games.
Yeah.
To try to make your corkboard work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Separate and distinct from like, okay, one person or one studio made these. How do these exist in conversation with each other, especially as they're like course correcting from mistakes that they made previously? Right. Want to make sure that we draw that distinction as well. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not, I think that there's a read of this game that is a condemnation of that, but I don't agree with that.
Right.
The idea of finding a through line through work feels very natural.
Yes.
To me, this game is challenging that, but I don't think it successfully like vanquishes it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more, a matter of degrees.
Yes.
With us.
Yeah. And then we get to our first kind of meaty one. This is Down. It was made in March of 2009. The title card says The Great and Lovely Descent. And we are in this kind of big white void. And the only focal point is this small brick restaurant that is here. A nice little cafe.
Yeah. Davey starts talking about how, Coda would design to the strength, you use the source engine and would design to the strength of that. And what the source engine does is large, empty, boxy rooms and hallways.
Yeah.
He mentions how the artist's tools determine what kind of stories he can tell. There's a seed of truth in that, but Davey completely does not understand the stories that Coda is trying to tell.
No, because it's undercut right away because you go down some stairs and then you reach a huge black void with this trail of colorful blocks leading down. He says all this right before he finds something that kind of defies it.
Yeah, it's really cool looking. If you're a fan of surreal spaces, this game's real good for it. You take this spiral staircase down, and it takes you to this prison, this concrete prison. There's these little like railway things, like little railway, but not the railway train that Skimbleshanks guards. The kind of things that guide you to a roller coaster.
Yeah, like a cattle run kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bovine University. These lead you to a cell.
Right.
Where you're trapped.
You're trapped only momentarily here. In the original version, the door would have stayed closed for a full hour, which would be miserable to play. But
Earthbound
also
did that thing. It was like, how long do you have to wait for that thing in Earthbound?
I mean, it couldn't be more than like 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's still obnoxious.
Yeah.
It's not an hour, but it still fucking sucked.
Yeah. But also the fact that it sucks is the statement that's being made here in this experimental game, right?
Yeah. And Davey doesn't get it or doesn't think it fits his interpretation, so he skips it.
Yeah, out of almost expediency, like he wants you to get to his other conclusions that he's drawn. So like we're not going to have you sit here. What Coda wants you to experience is not as important as seeing the rest of this.
Yes, what I want you to experience. He mentions how Coda and Davey would get in these arguments about whether a game needs to be accessible. Davey's perspective being like, you made it, you put all this work, let people enjoy it.
Yeah.
Whereas Coda did not buy that at all.
Right.
These arguments got heated. At one point, Coda sent Davey a zip file called Playable Games. There's hundreds of games that were just empty boxes you could walk around in. Very funny.
Extremely funny.
Yeah, take the hint, E-boy.
And then even funnier is that David missed the point of it after he saw one or two, and then he went and played all of them to see if there was anything hidden, to see if there was a gag. Like, what is he trying to say with this incredibly obvious, like, spiteful thing that he did?
Fuck you. Okay, if I take those letters and I unscramble them, then it actually spells fup. Cook my fup. Genius.
There we are. Just straight up Batman logic. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I wonder who that stands for.
It's very similar. We after he lets us out, we go in this yard, we do the puzzle, the door puzzle again, and we go into this judge room. Coda has created this dialogue system, and has this recurring element. These three mannequins, these human mannequins that stay still, and their faces are these boxes that rotate that have a word on the front. Very striking and cool looking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When they're speaking, it turns to say listen, and when it wants you to speak, the face turns and then it says speak. It's a very, very, very good image. And you know, there's a the dialogue here. They want to know, because you did have to pass through the puzzle to get there. You know, like, did you solve the puzzle to get in? You know, we want to know how to solve it to get out. They want to know what's beyond the prison. They need to know if there's an ending to this.
Yes. It's a really noteworthy thing here that Davey never draws attention to, but is really important to him not getting it, is that whenever there's dialogue, there are jokes. The dialogue in this game weirdly takes the, like, usually you'll have one thing to say that is close to what you want to say. Yeah. Without being exact. The other two tend to just be funny. Yeah. And there are varying degrees of that, but Davey never references that.
He never references actual text.
Yeah. These non sequitur joke things that lead to maybe Coda not just doing this slow motion cry for help.
Yeah.
Maybe things. When you get through here, you go into an identical room where there are judges again. And they say, like, hey, stand between the darkness between these doors. It's fun. You go out there again, you go down some stairs, and you reach this courtyard, and it has this lamppost. And Davey says, Coda started fixating on this lamppost. You know, he'd start using it. He didn't want to do these abstract, aimless games. The lamppost is like an anchor, so you have a destination.
Yeah.
To this.
Yeah. And I mean, we I mean, do we just want to say what this is?
Yeah, we can just say it.
Yeah. So maybe there was a lamppost at one time. Maybe it showed up here. Maybe it showed up at a couple of different places. Davey starts putting them into the games as he is showing them to people. He's kind of vandalizing these works in a way. And it calls into question a lot of what we are seeing, because if he is modifying them, then how much is this actually representing what Coda wanted, even above and beyond just the hacks to get us through tedious parts, or what Davey thinks is not important to us.
Yeah. He says, like, at this point, Coda's work is becoming more focused and coherent and clear. This point being when he started taking a more active hand in modding them.
Right.
Going to April 2009, this game called Notes. As you start out, it says in the beginning, it says this game is connected to the internet. As you walk around, you can leave notes, and all the notes you see are left by other players. This is a lie. There are no soapstones. He says Coda wrote all the notes. Who knows? I feel like Davey wrote the ones that feel like they tie into Davey's pet themes.
Yeah.
Of this.
But a lot of the notes are like people dismissing this work. People saying like, what's the point? This is just a big empty space. No point in going up this way. And there are hundreds of these, it feels like. Yeah.
I really appreciate that Davey, the narrator, and this says, just read the ones you feel like. There's nothing that happens if you read them all of them. Even though now I didn't read all of them. Maybe he's lying. I was like, I didn't want to go search them all out, but maybe something does happen.
Yeah. I would still revile a collectathon just the way I would revile being forced to wait for an hour.
Oh yeah, me too. But I just mean like maybe it, gives further lie to his understanding.
Yeah. And Davey says this is the first game that he saw Coda working on when he went to this game jam in Sacramento, where he grew up. And he even kind of admits or says in a half joking way, like, maybe I was a little bit too excited about seeing this, but just about making friends with Coda, about what a good idea this was, because he had never seen anybody working on something like this before. Right.
Yeah. So he sees this game, his interpretation is that this is Coda expressing his loneliness. He's making something to let him be known. You'd be able to get all these little individual windows into him, but he doesn't have to socialize with people.
Yeah. I mean, a more obvious read, especially given the tone of the notes, is this is about like anxiety about having a crowd react to your work, like, yeah. This is just trying to get the poison out, of people. It's like, oh yeah, this is this is my own kind of insecurity about how somebody would feel when they see this, right?
Or just a commentary on like art games.
True.
As kind of a thing. Like this does feel, all of the things that the people say that are dismissive are not just like, this is bad art. They're like, what's the point of this? Somebody says like, when do you get the gun? Stuff like that. There's an element of this that could also be read as, nobody understands this. People are asking the wrong questions.
Yeah.
When they get into art. But again, we don't know.
Nope.
All those are valid. There's just one that's codified by this game.
Yeah.
Because Davey made the game.
Yeah. I bring up my alternative read on this because Davey again is very obviously expressing his own loneliness, right? There's kind of a reflexiveness or a bit of a recursiveness because he sees these as a window into Coda. Because he also is looking for connection, right?
That's text later. Like Coda literally just says, your interpretations of this say more about you than me. Which is true of a lot of interpretations.
True.
Yeah. The spaces become kind of more winding and you start hearing these whispers and Davey starts talking about the puzzle there. He says, each game represents an idea that Coda had when he was working on it. And the puzzle that he has is a way of closing the door on one chapter of his life before moving on. He's completed that idea, put it in the puzzle, and then move on to the next. It has this dark room between the two that acts as a buffer where you stop, reflect, and put things into perspective before moving on from that idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Like again, works as an equation.
Yes. You get to the spinal room, which is full of typewriters. The sound of the typing is overwhelming. And then there's the lamppost here. and there is text dialogue demanding, someone who we cannot see demanding that we speak, kind of over and over again, kind of shouting in text.
Yes. This moves us on to Escape, which was released in the May-June corridor of 2009. Begins with a title card that says Porn Stars Die Too. Davey says, hey, this one's tough. Like, this is going to spin its wheels for a little bit, but just hang with it. Stuff will start to make sense.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. And we are in this small living room that is full of kind of this modern furniture. These are assets that we're going to see over and over again, because this isn't just one game. It is several made kind of iterating on the same idea over a period of time. We can look out the window to see the small yard with a well in it, and kind of there's this pounding bass in the music track that we're hearing. And all we can do is find this way into the basement through a hallway to get to the bottom of the well, where we're locked in.
Yeah. Davey says that Coda at this point got fixated on this prison house and this well. There's a lot of different versions of this game. We go through different versions of this eventually. We get this little dialogue prompt here asking what furniture that we want to put in the room. So we go up to these blank spaces and choose a piece of furniture. We have these comedy answers, but whatever we pick, the same furniture goes in the same places. As this happens, the walls expand outward, showing this big maze of stacked furniture assets. And Davey says, this is just weird for weirdness' sake, and shunts us to the next version. We don't do the maze, again, because Davey doesn't get it. Doesn't think it should be got.
Nope. Not even worth our time. This next one, we're given kind of a series of instructions about how to escape this prison. Almost a escape room kind of stuff. Go on, turn on this lamp.
It's almost exactly Tranquility Lane from Fallout 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like go and straighten this portrait, go and turn this lamp on and off, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. But when we go into the actual jail, the first piece of furniture we need to tweak isn't there. So we cannot escape. We do a few more. These all have different kind of impossible escapes. And Davey is really freaking out about this. Mm-hmm. Davey's like, it was really hard to see somebody just absolutely unraveling through their work.
Yeah.
The reason why he's churning through these prison ideas is he didn't have the mechanism to stop and move on. He couldn't do the puzzle room and get to the blank space. If that's what he does whenever he moves on from this idea must have been very pervasive.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there was no way out of it. There was no escape from this loop. And, he is very, again, to me, doing my read, Davey is very clearly like looking through somebody's sketchbook and seeing either places where a page was torn out or stuff was crossed through, when the person messed up or wanted to move on. Like, just, I need to get this right. Dang it. He's looking at all of this incomplete stuff, wondering what it means as he was iterating, and instead seeing it as this existential crisis, because to him, Coda is nothing but his ideas and his execution, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And a puzzle to solve.
Of course. And we finally get to the prison idea that worked, paradoxically, because the prison is not in it.
Yes. You go down this short garden path to this clearing, has a lamppost. Our first clue, this maybe is not real. There's a phone booth. We talk to it. We talk to a version of ourselves stuck in the past that's stuck in the prison. Mm-hmm. Referencing all of these things. In addition to it being like a notebook with crossed out versions, it could also be, it reminded me a little bit his interpretation of how some people will interpret FromSoft games.
Oh, yeah.
How FromSoft games will do kind of erasures sometimes. And I think that this is, if not intentional for this purpose, creates this effect in a way that's valid, where it creates a feeling of mystery by like taking a page of text and then like erasing, every third line.
Yeah.
To create this ambiguity. Like this final version that Davey says is the working version of this refers to things that you don't know about, but maybe that's what makes it interesting, to Coda.
Yeah.
Was the idea. It needed to have that groundwork that you don't see.
Yes.
To give it a sense of lived-inness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Davey, as you're, talking on the phone, kind of answering questions about, trying to give your past self advice, right, for how you got out of this maze, says that he thinks that these games are Coda talking with himself. And I love this, is talking with himself and just wishing he had somebody that he could get good advice from, someone to tell him that things are going to be okay.
Coda should just talk to me.
Yeah. I can help you out.
Me, Davey.
You were looking for an idea, guy. Come on.
That would have made me feel good. This was on The House, which is 2009. Davey says this is a game where Coda stopped talking to himself and starts talking to somebody else. No.
I mean,
you walk into this very
mid 2009. That's when he would have met Davey. So
yeah, that's why he feels like this. Out of all the games, it's just worth it as a basic level.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all these little art games, this one's my favorite.
Oh yeah.
This I think that if I had played this, I would have also come to an interpretation, not what Coda would have thought, but I feel like this speaks to me as being, rich.
Yeah, this is coherent and resonant.
Yes. You walk into this modern house on the side of this snowy mountain, and there's a person, their face says clean on their head. They're a house cleaner, and they're like, hey, are you going to help me or not? Mm-hmm. And they tell you to walk around to clean certain things. You just click on them. Mm-hmm. You click on them to turn them from the dirty to the clean version. Yeah. And while this is happening, he starts kind of philosophically talking about keeping a clean house is good for your soul.
Yes.
But you can never do it. Mm-hmm. Things, despite nobody being in the room, all of your work is consistently undone.
Yeah.
Through here.
Mm-hmm. And they end up repeating.
And Davey, says, oh, this represents a peaceful time in Coda's life. We seemed happy all the time. To me, this game screams unhappiness.
Yeah.
The idea, like, again, if I'm just interpreting for me, like I'm not putting it onto an e-creator, but if I just played this game as was, I would be like, oh, this is really bleak.
Yeah.
Having somebody tell you that keeping a clean house is keeping a clean soul, and you are literally stuck in an eternity of doing the same chores over and over in pursuit of that, and you can never get there. Yeah, like there's some truth to that and some beauty, but also some sadness.
Yeah, it's a really melancholy thing. And also just like what the person is describing is kind of something that you would never get. Like it's an experience, it's a feeling that you would never get just by doing this version of it. Right. Yes. The idealized version that the person in the game is talking about. And instead in the game, it is just this, infinitely repeating, just kind of plate spinning kind of deal.
Yeah. And that's how it was infinite in the original version. We don't find that out until later. At this point, the music stops and the cleaner disappears. And Davey says you have to move on because you always have to move on. Yeah. Staying still artistically is death. And the door up at the top has opened and sends you up there. We'll later find out that never happened.
No.
In the original version.
No.
It did just go on forever.
Mm-hmm. And Davey can't even just bring himself to say, oh, this would have gone on forever. Because that is not as useful to him as putting in his own version of this, which is that you have to move on. You have to keep on. You have to see the next thing.
Yep. Which is definitely him projecting.
Yeah.
Coda is satisfied with something as it is. Davey is the one who is continuously pulling at the threads. Right.
Turn back from this cave. You said, let me prove that I'm brave. Let me keep going. The cave goes for miles and miles.
This moves us on to lecture in September 2009.
Items you love at members only prices. The title card says. And Davey, highlights saying, hey, this one's just a little bit more goofy, although it is incredibly horrifying.
Yeah, I don't think it's goofy at all.
No.
Again, just, at this point, you're in this lecture hall. It's empty. There's an instructor in front of you. And the lecturer starts lecturing you on becoming perfect. Think of a person that makes you feel disgusting in comparison to them, and this will make you like them. And you kind of flit around to different members of the audience until eventually your perspective shifts and you're the professor. Yeah. And the back wall of the lecture hall was never there. You couldn't turn around when you were one of the students. It is this gigantic screaming Eye of Sauron black hole thing.
Yup. Just a howling void that you are speaking to, as all of the seats are empty, extolling the virtues of being perfect with no effort.
Yeah. Yep. You can continue to lecture on topic, but you also have tons of just jokes you can make and goofiness that you can say. And Davey at this point says, oh, this is really relatable. you realize somebody you idolized only seen that way because you never noticed the small details around them that make them human. It's such a overread in a stretch.
Yeah.
Of this, you never get a sense of idolizing the professor.
No.
From that. That is 100% Davey just mapping this onto his bullshit with Coda.
It feels incredibly disdainful of the professor,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And one of the things I love about this game is how it portrays its theming and its twist before the twist. Like that is just true. It's evidently true if you stop to think about it, but it's very easy. And I did the first time I played this of just going along for the ride.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I'm in good hands. Like, tell me what's true.
Yeah. You know this guy better than me. I will trust you to convey, right? You've obviously thought a lot about this, so I want to hear.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv.
Patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Our whole lives are lies. Moving on to theater, which is January 2010 here.
Yes.
And Davey again is condescending about this. He's like, this took months and months to make. The games are slowing down, as we'll see from these dates. But Davey says, actually, it's real simple though.
Yeah. Saying,
here.
You step out onto a stage, and this unseen director saying, hey, you're going to be playing as me. You're playing a scene from my life. You're at this professional event, it's like a kind of conference or something like that. And there is this animal photographer that you idolize. You also want to be an animal photographer. And you have to walk through the scene of talking to her and making kind of your impression. This could be the moment your entire life hinges on.
Yes. You get these dialogue options, but none of them are correct. Every single time you say something, the director yells at you for blowing it. Mm-hmm. Eventually, between you and the person, these pinball bumpers bounce away when you touch them. These represent other people at the conference. I can't remember if Davey says that or if they I think they make the noise of it, but they act like pinball bouncers, like you'll bounce off.
Yeah.
If you touch them. The director's like, no, this isn't how I felt. Let me try something different. He removes the backdrop from the stage and we see the lamp. And I love this because we go towards the lamp here. If Davey placed this lamp here to make us go, that is him doing armchair game design.
Yeah.
Afterwards, once you go there, a series of cages close behind you, pushing you further and further from the stage where the person is.
And who knows if that was actually your intention. Like this could be a lose state. If you step back from the stage, you are further locked out from it. And the further you go, the more impossible it is to get back to that moment or get back to other people. It's very anxiety inducing. Yeah.
Yep. Davey says, this is, this presages something that will soon happen to Coda. The solution that he has to social anxiety and needing to perform is to lock yourself away. Coda stopped making games for another 5 months. And I think that's really unhealthy. His games are telling me to connect with him, but he's been retreating.
Yeah. And I don't think
they've been retreating. It's worth noting Coda's gender is not pointed out. And there are elements where, there are reads of this that I've read that Davey is literally like a stalker. Like this is about stuff that happens to lady game devs. When somebody takes a patronizing interest.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I think the game contains that. I think that's valid.
I feel real. I feel real bad. It's real like I didn't solve the I can't operate on this person because they are my son. I kind of fell for that. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. That's unflattering.
There's a melted icicle on the floor though. Wanna make you feel better, buddy?
I didn't think the doctor would be a woman. Yeah.
That's
that's bias.
That's our fault, but it's also a lifetime of bias as well. We're working on it.
Yeah. But no, that is a very good read. I like that quite a bit, but I don't think that it's overreading. And I definitely think it's part of the text here, which is that Coda wasn't withdrawing from the world. He was withdrawing from Davey. right? Or they were
Yeah.
withdrawing from Davy. Coda wasn't stopping making games because they were falling into a depression. They were stopping making games because Davy made it not fun for them to create, right? And this is overreading, but I can definitely see the director as Davy. Right. Like the director just constantly saying, and no, that's not right. Come on. No, just do this. Like trying to guide you through criticism and guide you through kind of putting their own read on it. Right.
Well, Coda also says that these lulls are just natural as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it's Davy absolutely sucking balls, but also it's just this happens.
Yeah.
It takes a while before a new idea comes. That's art.
Yeah.
For you. This moves on to June 2010 with a game called Mobius.
Yeah.
It begins with prompts. Says the proper way to play this game is you close your eyes to play. Press any button to begin. You cannot play it while you close your eyes there. And Davey eventually will tell you, like, hey, open your eyes.
Mm-hmm. No. The only way to win this is to cheat.
Yep. So you open your eyes and he says, like, hey, there is a solution. The ship is on a collision course with this gigantic door. The puzzle door is heading towards us in space. I love that for the puzzle door.
Yep.
So we had to find our way to this elevator and go up to this catwalk. There's a figure staying there by a lamppost. Davey put there as that's where the solution goes. Mm-hmm. Saying, if you want to get through this, you have to speak something true. And your options all have to do with creating games. Mm-hmm. I am bursting with creative energy. I can't keep making these. My work is always fun.
Yeah. 2 lies and a truth.
Yep. And you say the negative one at that point, and the door in front of you stops. Mm-hmm. It's no longer going to crash into you.
Yeah. And then the conversation continues, and all of these are about burnout and about wanting to quit. And Davey expresses his concern in the narration. Coda's never been this direct with the messages before. And kind of asks, like, where's this coming from? Like, I didn't see this.
Yeah. Yep. At the time, Coda would deflect his concerns there. And he's like, here is the point in the relationship where I started to wonder if Coda really needed my help.
No.
In some way. We switch over to Island. We're almost out of games here. This came out in 2010.
Yes.
Here. And you start out in a void. And every time you talk, like you get these little prompts, a new island pops up with a bridge.
Yeah.
And we walk over to the new island and the old one disappears.
Mm-hmm. And this voice asks, hey, are you lost? And all of the questions are about your work. And this is one of the areas where it started really pulling at my heartstrings here. There's just so many of these. I mean, just like, God, there was a machine that kept me going and it stopped. Like, fuck, how that relatable hashtag. Yeah. I'm making a joke about it because I do the hashtag joke because I feel that too deeply.
Yeah. Yep. Trying to find this engine that protected me to start this thing again. Yeah, he says. And this voice says it will lead you to that machine if you can help them solve the puzzle. And Davey at this point butts in and says, like, these games are remarkable. No matter how frustrated Coda got, he was still making them occasionally. So I could tell that they were really suffering, but these were still coming out. Mm-hmm. They represent his isolation, his, sitting in this bubble and not releasing these games to the internet.
Don't hide your light under a bushel, man.
Yeah. Come on, Coda.
Expose them to thousands of Davies, bud. Oh, man. And when you get to the end of this, the voice is there, because you are trying to teach the voice, you do not put the solution in yourself. You actually give the instructions to the voice.
Yeah. Yep. Davey comes in and says, you can't talk your way out of loneliness. It doesn't work that way. You can't be the one writing the questions and the answers. Then there's no movement, no circulation. If all your anxieties are being channeled into your work and your work ever fails, the only option is to crash.
Which is, not a healthy relationship with creative output.
Horribly unhealthy. Like everything, be not unto Davey in this
Dear God.
The fictional version of Davy in this is the exact opposite of how to be a human being.
Right.
It's very relatable, but don't do it. Your goal in human life is to be the opposite of what Davy is in this.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
Yes. That is the way to be. Yeah, because he's modeling extremely unhealthy behavior.
Yes.
In this.
Davey says he was really upset when he saw this game. Video games are not worth this amount of suffering. Like just, oh my gosh, he's torturing himself or Coda's torturing themselves by making this. And Davey says, I needed more than I ever needed anything for this to stop. Like we just, Davey made it his personal mission to get Coda out of this rut.
At the end of this game, there's no machine. You go into a room with these walls that have text from the previous games. And to start the machine, you lie. Hey, game development is easy and fun all the time. The walls break away, revealing more words. And you continue to lie at this until you see the prison. And there's a woman lying on this couch crying. This woman does not have a box face.
Yeah.
It's the only person in the game without a box face. And when you approach, the game closes.
Yeah. The fact that the text on the walls is from the previous games and acknowledges the choices that you have made there, this very much feels like this is a Davy inclusion. And the fact that the previous game had you, tell the truth to save yourself and stop careening toward the puzzle wall. And this one is the only way to win is to lie, to tell the version of the lie that is Davy's preferred version, in order to progress. Really makes it feel like this is not Coda's work.
Yeah. Or like the other thing I thought about with this, and this was part of the Davy is harassing a female dev interpretation that I've seen, is that this is Davy breaking in on Coda.
Yes.
Like Coda put Coda in here for Davy to continue to push through the walls of this to get past that boundary.
Yeah.
There. It is difficult to say for sure, but it definitely feels cut and dry in a very Davy way.
Yeah.
This moves on to Machine in 2011. Here, you play an interrogator walking to this door of this prison, and you have to go interrogate the machine. They have the machine. And the machine is named Coda.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
So you walk in, and you have to pass through this hall that is full of press. They've got cameras and microphones asking questions like, hey, are we going to get to the machine? Can we see the machine? What's the machine have to say? Can you get some answers? And you get there, and it is this large car engine in this room.
So when you get there, you ask it questions. You ask why it stopped. And then you start criticizing it for stopping, abusing it for stopping. And then you admit that you feel alone and abandoned because it stopped.
Yeah.
That engine kind of can be Coda and you can be Davy in this, whether Coda made this or Davy made this.
Yeah.
Eventually you say all right, you're not going to apologize. I'll apologize on your behalf. You step out to the press and you do this speech. If Coda made this is a brutal condemnation of Davy.
Oh yeah. Going out and speaking for them when they cannot speak themselves or have chosen not to. And just kind of said the demanding a justice that is in no way his,
Yes. Yeah. When you do this, you have this set of different dialogue, but all of it is very fascistic.
My followers, I have a troubling revelation.
Yeah. It's real the bad dialogue option in Frostpunk. To say at the end, you've chosen the order path too far. When you get through this, you say, we will destroy everything the machine created. And you go through this door to the stage, you have a machine gun, but now when you shoot, you break the level.
Yeah.
You destroy the level, creating this white void around you.
And you're flashing through a bunch of the previous things, previous experiments or whatever. And I love Davy's line here, as you are literally playing as Davy, destroying these things with a gun. Davy says, so now the work is becoming self-destructive. Oh, you're being a little silly. Talking to a toddler.
Coda's stuck in his head, and all he needs is to start showing people his work again. Again, he thinks he has the solution at this point. So this is when Davey says, like, I'm going to take initiative. That's when I decided to take initiative. I saw this game, so I compiled the games to show them to people. And people loved them. Mm-hmm. There's nothing for Coda to be afraid of. This is great. This is a real observation thing. The idea of sometimes somebody will do something for themselves and people will project onto them that it's only fear of failure.
Right.
That stops them from doing it. But that is a projection. Mm-hmm. That is something, the reason why, you might do something because you're afraid of failure. But lots of people, choose to keep work to themselves, not because of fear of failure, but because it's more sacred to them because of that, or because they don't feel the need to. That's not what they get out of it.
Because it's theirs, You often don't publish your journal or your diary, right?
Yeah. Or you can also do creative work for yourself or for your friends.
Right.
Coda initially showed this to his friends. Mm-hmm. Or their friends. I keep doing the male gender as well, but it's their friends. We don't know.
Yeah. But it's but like, no, ultimately you own your work unless you give it to other people, right? Mm-hmm. Like just it is that is yours. It's sacred, and to have that trust betrayed, it's a real shitty thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Eventually you shoot through the floor and you fall through this big version of the puzzle door and end up in a hallway with the machine. It says to put down your weapon, but we draw our gun and shoot at it.
Yeah.
Instead. And Davey says, "Hey, can you see why, I thought this was the right thing to do?"
Getting defensive.
He's very defensive. He wants this validation. He wants other people to think his work is good, so he thinks other people need that as well.
Yes. I need it, so Coda must need it. When someone really connects with this thing that I made, when they see something purely, when they see themselves purely in my work, there's nothing that feels better, which is ascribing to other people, or other creators. That's not the only goal that you can have, is to get other people to see or feel themselves, in something that you're communicating. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very cynical.
Yeah.
So he wants to give that to his friend. But he even at this point understands, like, he can't say outright he did something good. Yeah. Like, he did something that made him feel good, by fixing Coda's problem and being the savior, and then he has this moment of self-reflection. He's like, the praise that people gave Coda's games, made me feel good.
Yeah.
The best feeling, these interpretations, that I'm doing. This is where this is as mean, to critics as it can be.
Yeah.
Basically, the idea that, there's a reading of this that is about how Davey didn't do anything.
Right.
And he was just getting this attention and the artist was not.
Yeah.
There. Which, obviously we don't agree with that, or we wouldn't make this our job. Right. But that is a perspective that some people have. I'm not attributing that to Davey Reedon, the creator.
Right.
At all. I just think it's one possible read of this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's about something way more specific than just the general act of criticism. It's like, it could even be like down to fandom too. Like, aren't I good because, don't I have great taste? Shouldn't people think well of me because I found this thing, or I knew this thing, or I was associated with this thing? Right.
Yeah. I think that it does end up becoming more specific when we get into the next chapter.
Yeah.
At some point, in addition to being about criticism or fandom, it's also about external validation.
Yes.
As the only, possible driver for anything.
Yeah, the only motivation, the only currency that we'll spend.
Yes. Yeah. We get into the last real game of the thing. I don't really know who made the epilogue game or what that's about.
Right.
We'll get into that, I guess. But the last game, this is in June 2011, and according to Davey's knowledge, is the last game Coda made.
Yes.
It's a private link that Coda sent directly to Davey.
Right. And we're in this big concrete structure. We're looking for this tower. And Davey says that, he can't say anything meaningful about this so far. It's just a distant and cold game. And in a way, he's right. like this entire game is an obstacle that is made not to dissuade Davy from getting through it, but to, it's made with full knowledge that Davy is going to get past all of this, get through the coldness and the distance, and kind of prove, just like, yes, you are going way too far in order to hurt me. That's what it is. No matter how hard I try and make it, no matter how I try to make you understand, you still just force through it blindly and brutishly.
Yeah. And before he says that, he makes him do it.
Yes.
It's actually really deft of this character. Yeah. When you go through this area, you eventually end up in an invisible maze. Whenever you touch a wall of this maze, the screen flashes red and you start over.
Yeah.
That's obnoxious. But again, it's meant to be. And Davey says, this game goes beyond not wanting to be played. It despises the player for wanting to play it at all. Mm-hmm. But Davey can put a bridge over it. Yep. He bypasses this authorial intent. To be fair, this is not like the first game that needs some modification to be playable. The house cleaning game, that would loop chores forever. I have the ability to end it.
Still playable. The cell that you were locked in for an hour, playable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and him admitting this later is great.
Yes.
There's this huge element of this that the degree to which I'm still able to have sympathy for the Davy character is that to the degree to which he's lying to himself.
Yes.
It's the part that, like, I do think that there's a minimal level of self-awareness and kind of responsibility that you should have to be a better friend than this, certainly, but also just be a better human being than this. But he's working. He doesn't know.
No.
He's not operating fully cognizant of the things he's doing yet.
He's just charging blindly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the house cleaning would have looped, but that game had an idea that it was trying to convey, right? You clean forever. So what's the idea behind this invisible maze? What's trying to be communicated? Just not getting, just like with the collection of playable games, quote unquote, right? Just not getting the message and what was being, sent there, even though it was shouted through a bullhorn, right?
Yep. Yeah. The next challenge is the 6-digit combination lock. There are no hints for. Davey's like, you just have to brute force this. It's ridiculous. He puts the combination on the ground for you so you don't have to. But that's the only way to get through that. The next challenge is this room with a door, and the switch is actually on the other side. You could beat the maze, you could beat this combination thing. You literally can't beat this.
Yeah. And, this is Coda saying to Davey, like, okay, so even if you play within the rules and I make it as impossible for you to, get through it like in the way a normal person would, this is me also telling you, I know you're getting in there and fucking around with my shit. Right.
Yep.
Like, I know that you're going to just get in here and look at the files anyway and bypass my intent. So yes, this is impossible, but you're going to break outside of the bounds anyway. So why, just again, getting the person to incriminate themselves by showing that they know how to unlock the door. Right.
Yep. Yeah. And, in one of the things I think this game does, one of the reads of this game is I do think that there's a read of this game that's a condemnation of people who try to solve art.
Yeah.
And Davey modeling all of the worst behavior. Davey says, I feel like a failure, I guess, when I can't fix the problem. Tons of people just look at all human creation that way.
Yeah.
I talk about a lot on the show how irritated I am when people try to solve conversations like equations or try to solve anything like an equation. Like things are messy. And being right about what something actually is canonically is not very valuable.
No.
I don't think it's coming up obviously a lot now that we've been re-energized in Bonfireside Chat, not with us, but in my YouTube algorithms, which is now absolutely full of the Elden Ring timeline explained.
Yeah.
Things like that. Like, I'll go on there. I don't think it actually matters when Marika and Radagon, when that happened.
Right.
Without spoiling it. Like, I don't think the timeline of it actually matters that much. It feels like not seeing the forest for the trees, but there are a lot of people who feel like a failure if they can't fix problems.
Right.
Let go of that shit. It's not good for you. Don't be unto Davy.
Do not be unto Davy. The specifics oftentimes are not necessary when something is working in a thematic mode, right? When you're not listening for the sound, like it's just kind of enough to be there in the echoes, right?
Yeah. Davy could have gone through these games, not this one up until this point, because this only works if Davy gonna Davy, but just feel the things you feel around it, chew on the ideas, and then go about your life. It's
a little bit like what people say about like if you see a little kid drawing something, or like, hey, how should you respond to this? Right? Like, do not go up and ask, like, oh, is that a dog? You know, like you actually just need to say, like, oh, that's good. To tell me about it, right?
Yeah, open-ended questions.
Yes, as opposed to imposing a read or imposing a standard that could possibly be failed just because you arbitrarily set it.
Are you drawing that because you feel like you're in a creative rut and you feel like you can't connect to people?
I notice,
is that why you're drawing that dog?
I notice you're drawing the same the same house, you know, the two windows on the top and the door and the chimney with the big smiling sun. Is the sun smiling because you can't smile? Is it because you feel
Is there a moon on the other side of this that is crying? What if you drew that? I would draw that because that's how I feel. Little kid. You know, that is the definition of the kind of patronizing that Davy is doing here. You know, he eventually, like, he opens the door for you, you know, and he's talking about himself and his experience of playing this game. He's like, he played this and he can't get it at all. And it makes him feel like a failure. You know, he's playing this game for the first time and he's thinking, I don't even know the person who made this. And he's portraying that sentence like it's a tragedy instead of the point.
Yes. This is absolutely what Coda is saying, which is you've not actually listened to the things that I have told you. You've only decided, you know, even though we talk, you've only decided to relate to me through my art. You have placed that above me as a person.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love the this bit here where he's like, he talks about he had been begging Coda to tell him what the games meant. And so what do the three dots mean? In the earlier games, there's a subtle motif of three dots in a couple of the games that aren't commented on by Davy. And in some games, they're not there. And we don't know if they've been removed.
Right.
Or if this is what the lamp post replaced.
Oh, yeah.
You know, as a thing. Like, this is the thing that matters, not your recurring thing. My recurring things.
Again, just an overwriting, a willful overwriting. And Davy's saying, you know, I just thought that if I could connect with him, if I could just make his work my own, I could finally be once and for all happy. God, I love that. Once and for all happy. Like, that's a thing you could be, or that's a thing you could find, you know, through somebody else in this way, or that you could ask of somebody else. I'm mad at this person that is made up.
Yeah. Davy sucks in this. Huge, again, model for how not to be.
Yeah. Continuing. I needed to see myself in someone else. I needed to be someone other than me. And then asking, where did I screw up?
Yeah. You get to the top of this tower. Here's the big moment of this.
Yeah.
And you're in like a museum of, you know, statements on wall pieces with little velvet ropes around them. And it begins, it's a message directly from Coda to Davy and says, you know, thank you for your interest in my games. I need to ask you not to speak to me anymore. Devastating first time I saw this.
Yeah.
Just gut punch, you know, identifying with Davy. Also, all the people who think this is real, go to hell.
Yeah.
Why would he include this, you idiots? Like, it's so weird. Did you not play the whole game? Like,
it's very short. If you stopped at the half hour in, I'm sorry. I don't know.
I don't want to hear the end of any sentences. It's really weird that people don't get it by the end of this.
I mean, you want to think that people are acting in good faith, but like, it has to be a put on, right? It has to.
I don't think that about anything anymore.
I guess
whenever anyone is like, "Oh, this has to be fake," It's certainly not. There are enough shitty people out there and idiots to think anything.
Right. There is no bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that happened with the recent, like Elden Ring players fuck off. Like we've been with from the beginning or whatever. And someone's like, oh, this has to be, like many people on Twitter were like, oh, this has to be fake. Yeah. Why?
No.
What gives you that faith in humanity that like, you don't think there are these idiots online?
You've never ran into them before?
And then there'll be people who are like, hey, before you make fun of this, how do we know it's real? And I'm like, well, I don't want to get into that kind of forensics case on every single thing that ever pops up online.
To a degree, saying this makes me angry, not because it's real, but because it's the kind of thing they would say. Like, no, that's not what we're doing. It's not just being like, okay, but just a man. No,
down that path leads never responding to anything.
Right.
If you're just like, oh, it might not be real. They might just be joking or whatever. Like, I choose not to live in the world where I have to consider whether somebody is pretending to be an asshole.
Yeah.
For jokes versus being an asshole before having an emotional reaction.
Right. And I can choose my reality. I can choose to believe that somebody had a heart attack after they tased their balls on January the 6th. Right.
They probably did tase their balls, or at least one of them. But the balls are connected by a thread, so if you tase one, it's like the domino power in Dishonored 2.
Yeah, if you tase one ball, the other one's going to go.
Yeah, it's actually pretty awesome. I was able to speedrun my vasectomy because of the domino.
Yeah. But balls are kind of like elephants. That's the only part of your body that can grieve.
Yeah, it's also the part that never forgets. When my sack was opened up and this rich smoke came out and the outsider came out with his arms crossed. And
wouldst thou like to live deliciously? Wouldst thou like to nut inside without consequences?
And I have been living deliciously. All kinds of blanks. It's great. Love a non-potent seed.
No, that's projection.
Yeah. Hey, now when I project, I don't have to worry about getting anyone pregnant.
Heyo.
Coda continues here. It's like, you think that I'm making my games just for you. And you started putting things in there. I started putting things in there just to give you to find. Maybe you are influencing me.
Right.
Like this incredible, unrelenting close read.
Right. So maybe that led to me putting things there for you to find, not because I wanted to put them there, but because I wanted there to be something for you to find. Right.
Yeah. Stop giving these to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's ridiculous. You don't have the right to give this. It's not yours to give. You're violating a boundary that keeps me safe.
Yes. Well, you stop changing my games. Stop adding lampposts to them.
Yeah, that's great. That's like such a good moment because it's like, I bought the lamppost hook, line, and sinker, of course.
It casts everything into question. It's a real load bearing kind of line. Yeah.
Yeah. And as it's happening, Davy's kind of having a breakdown, protesting.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I felt like I was creating something really great when I was showing and valuable when I was showing off your work.
Right.
Oh God, maybe you stopped making games because of me.
Right.
I poisoned it.
Yeah. And when I had nothing left to show, I just had to be with myself. I didn't have anything of my own. Maybe I didn't even, he didn't say this. This is just me, right? Like, maybe I didn't exist without this other thing to reflect off of. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And Coda continues, like, part of the reason why I love this game is the brutality of it.
Yeah.
At the end, because we don't let Davy off the hook.
No.
For a while, He's like, when I'm around you, I feel physically ill. You desperately need something and I cannot give it to you. I literally don't have it.
Right.
To give it up to you. I'm not depressed coming up with new ideas. Low points are just part of the process. The fact that you think I'm frustrated says more about you than me.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this last bit quite a bit. Like, I realize this doesn't make sense to you. That's fine. You're not my problem to solve.
So good.
Yeah. Incredibly healthy attitude. Like,
right.
You're not my problem to solve is a real advanced lesson that I struggle with, all the time.
Yeah.
Like that is a very human
I want to help. If I'm not helping, then what am I doing? Right.
Yeah. And sometimes it's, knowing when it's your place to is very important.
Yeah. And it's the way that this is written and kind of the emotional intelligence that is displayed in the direct text that Coda is writing to this terrible friend, this kind of breakup letter of a kind. That is what leads me to believe Coda is not nearly the recluse, not nearly the stunted person that Davy is portraying them as.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hesitant with that just because I feel like knowing anything about Coda feels contrary to what the game
I suppose is
saying. Like in the text, that would be a valid read, but I do think this game has things to say about getting to know an artist from their work and how that is. We don't know the people who make stuff that we like. That's something I generally believe, and I think that this game underlines that pretty hard.
Yeah. I guess I think the fact that it is direct text that is being put here from the mouth of this particular fictitious character makes me feel a little bit more confident in giving that read.
Yeah,
but also,
who knows?
Even if Coda is reclusive or wants to keep to themselves, that's fine. It's not Davy's problem to solve. Certainly not by publishing their work without permission.
Yeah,
right.
It's all through this unreliable lens of King Should Heal.
Yes.
Somewhere in this is where he says something like, I don't know what I cannot imagine living without external validation.
That's a little bit later. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's incredible. Just incredible. Yeah. So Davy's really upset about this and he's kind of breaking down. It's really hard to listen to. The first time I heard this, it's very emotionally affecting.
Yeah.
He's like, I did something really stupid because I don't like myself and I'm still doing it. Mm-hmm. It's not just like him realizing it's bad. He can't stop.
Right.
Doing this shit.
Yeah. And so you get to the puzzle, right? Open it with a lever and then hit the lever and step through and then go inside. When you're inside, hit the lever that appears. But when you hit the lever that appears on the inside, the other door doesn't open. You're stuck. You're in between.
Yeah. Yep. And he's saying like, I keep doing it. I'm releasing this collection of your work, even though I know you don't want me to. I haven't been able to find another way to reach you. Like if I do this, maybe you'll play it. And if enough people play this, and like it, maybe you'll see it and I can say, I'm sorry. And if I apologize and it's true, maybe you can start making games again. He's reliant on this. He's made this person the key to him being okay.
Yeah.
Put all his eggs in the Coda basket.
Yeah. And also feels that it is his right to be heard, right? Like, okay, yes. I've tried everything and I can't reach you. Not understanding that, okay, the message did get there, but you can't reach a person who doesn't want to be reached. Coda wants nothing to do with you. This is a futile effort and it is just more violence.
It makes the stalker interpretation of this real creepy.
Yeah.
And it comes up again. It's a relatable general thing. Like how many times have we had somebody, get cranky at us for something and ask us to change something. And we just say like, okay, noted. And then that's not like good enough.
Right.
They act as if sometimes people cannot handle the limits of their power.
Right.
It's like, oh, I tried something. I didn't get the reaction I wanted. So I have to keep trying, as opposed to accepting there are things that are not for you. Mm-hmm. Like this version of Davy is so immensely self-centered.
Yeah.
In a literal sense, to a degree that creates immense amounts of bile and disgust in me.
Yeah.
The idea that anything could not be for him is literally inconceivable.
Yeah.
To him. Gross.
Don't care for it. Don't care for it one bit. And he's just ranting. He's saying, I realize I'm doing something really awful here, but, please give me some of whatever it is that makes you complete. You were complete in some way that I never was. Please, I'm fading, and all I want to know is that I will be okay.
Yeah. And then this closes, and we get an epilogue. Here, if this were a real thing, there wouldn't be a bespoke epilogue.
Nope.
Game.
certainly not with an ending that implies self-harm.
Yeah, and that has Wario in it. It's incredibly weird that they managed to get Wario just for this last epilogue.
I mean, he books out years in advance.
Yeah. The Wario cameo in this is just a true shocker. Yeah. I did not get self-harm from this.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like but again, I think that part of it is my feeling of I was off board of interpretation.
Yeah.
I felt like the last chapter yelled at me to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't want to be a Davy.
True.
You know, you don't want to become you don't want to become the Davy to Davy's coda.
Yeah. Well, also, like, I'm not saying that Davy himself is saying this is how he really feels. I think that this is an implied end to the fictional Davy, that it's an implication about the fictional Davy that is here, right? Especially if you interpret that, you know, okay, the previous one was a game, you know, like, okay, this was the last game that Coda ever made. It really feels like, okay, in the fiction of this would be Davy putting his own coda onto Coda's work. And kind of saying how he feels about himself, about this ending, right?
Yeah. It's super depressed. I just didn't get self-harm from it.
Yeah.
I got stepping away from it and didn't go further than that. Like he says he has work to do.
Yeah.
I don't assume he means in the hells of Hades.
Right.
You know, I think maybe to me, I chose to interpret this as have contempt for this person, but it's possible that they are going to go do the therapy work and shit that they had to do because they realized something.
Yeah.
At this point, like it feels like they have a realization at the end of this.
Yeah. Maybe my read is too bleak. I don't know.
It's mostly just you walk around this train station while he talks to you. There's really nothing to do in the level part of this.
Right.
Here.
You know, you get to this manor house after taking a little train ride. And Davy says, you know, just how he always needed more and more validation. Just that is just a base desire, a need for him. And he wishes that Coda, you know, just said, my prison games don't mean anything. I just like making these prison games. You know, if I knew that, if I could have read that, if I could have heard that instead of overreading into them, you know, this is a quote, I wouldn't have told so many people that he was depressed. Which is like, yeah, maybe don't go and say like, oh, my friend is depressed because of the games they're making.
Yeah. Don't diagnose other people.
Yeah.
In a general sense,
mm-hmm.
You know, he says, you know, I know putting this out, I'm showing people that I'm a shit.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a bad person. As you're doing this, you're getting to more abstract kind of levels. You walk into this dark room, you're in this cavern with like low ceilings and high floors there. And he's ruminating on being shitty. He's like, you know, and this is where he says, I just literally can't conceive of what it'd be like not to be driven by external validation,
right? Which
is the conclusion we have about Coda. That is not Coda's drive.
Right.
You know, he apologizes at this point. He says, I've got to leave. I've got a lot of work to do. I've got a lot to make up for, and and you can finish this game alone.
Yeah.
The epilogue.
Yeah. And we conclude walking through these abstract spaces in quiet, no narration. You know, we're in this cavern, and then we get to a long hallway that is from that space station from the ship earlier, and we see the Whisper Drive beam. You know, in that game, you had to step into it to sacrifice yourself in order to save everybody else. And the only way forward is to step into it. And instead of dying, instead of having the actual end that would have been built into the escape from Whisper, you instead rise up. It replicates the bug, but you're rising up through the blackness, under the stars. And out below you is this infinitely sprawling maze in all directions.
Yeah. And that's the end of the beginner's guide. I don't think that it's self-harm, but that's fine. It could be. But I also think that this game specifically doesn't want us to do that.
No.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to this game and a lot of interpretations about it. I think that like at the very minimum, like it is about the dangers of overreading, specifically of feeling like you know somebody by their work.
Yes.
And crossing boundaries and doing that. And you can take that degree and dial it forward or back to whatever degree, to whatever amount you want.
Yes.
So I think this game supports a read that is about criticism as being an inherently kind of intrusive act.
Mm-hmm.
We're not all putting in lamppost literally,
Right.
but when you engage in an act of criticism, you are bringing yourself to it.
Yeah, and you're definitely informing the way that people read. You might end up getting somebody to reevaluate, to steer away from their initial reaction to the work and imposing yourself into the relationship between the creator and the non-critic player.
Yeah. And even though I love that, obviously, I also think that is, there's a lens through which that is violent, to just the sanctity of somebody's work. Most people want that.
Yeah.
Most people who create art and they release it and in part for that purpose. But it's not something that is inherently part of art or inherently kit and caboodle with the act of creation.
Mm-hmm.
It is dangerous to assume that it is, and it's dangerous to run that throttle all the way up. And ultra dangerous when it's you saying that the person, and even incredibly, unkind when it's somebody
Yeah.
and it's like personal and you're being shitty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a very weird one to analyze, feels a little bit like walking on eggshells to a degree.
Yeah. Yeah. It resists it. I love how hostile it is to that. It feels to me like it bats a bunch of ideas to think about with stuff like this, but is very flexible in terms of conclusion.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate.
Yeah. Really, really deftly put together,
Yes.
And it's one of those things where oftentimes you run into the problem of saying whether or not a whole work is subtle or unsubtle, but good ones, there are the different parts of it are different things. This has its incredibly unsubtle moments, again, when the characters are directly speaking to you, either through the narration or through the Coda's letter at the end, right? But there are just lots and lots of subtle little touches that all build up to that just gigantic, very well executed impact when you get to the end and get that turn. And just this game, it fucked me up the first time that I played it.
Yeah, me too. Big emotional reaction. I also, one thing I love about it is that I was trying to think about this. This it might be, it's up there with walking sims for me. It's either this or Soma probably, if that counts, and it only kind of counts. But one of the things I love about this in terms of walking sim or just a video game is it's about something that video games are not about.
Yeah. Yeah.
People will make art games about anything. There's no shortage of subjects. If you want to play a game about almost anything, you can.
Yeah.
Right. This is just a deep and resonant and interesting theme.
Yeah.
For a game to be about. It's not about honor, or the place of a soldier, or something like just the kind of crap that video games tend to be about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wouldn't immortality suck? We have unlimited things that video games can be about. It ends up feeling like we end up playing games about the same, 10 things. Yeah. Or whatever, whether that's, that's certainly not strictly true, but that's how it can feel sometimes. This is a game about games or about art in a way that to me does not feel strokey or clever or winky at all. It's saying something true and kind of like a tragic puzzle about art. Yeah.
It's very earnest. And I think that helps it. Right.
Yes.
It says, everything here is intentional. And it is not, yes, there is dramatic irony with some of the things that Davey says that really underlines, the ways in which he is failing as a friend, and as a consumer. But I think that sincerity to this is a really important part of it. And, keeps it from feeling like it is, trying to be real, look at me clever. Which is a problem, that an art game can fall into quote unquote art game, right? And I think that, when we talk about like, honor the role of a soldier, or, friendship, etc. Like, I'll take friendship out of there because, that would actually make what I'm about to say really, really insulting. All of those things are actually like less relatable than just, or less applicable to our lives than a game that is about, the perils of playing and interpreting a game wrong, right? I think that everybody who is playing this has an experience of playing a game and wondering what it means, and this is about that. And this is about that.
A game,
yeah,
just like art.
Yes,
or the experience of assuming somebody based on their art.
Yes,
I assume that if not universal, it's a fairly commonplace experience to meet somebody who has made something that you like, and being disappointed on some level, or feeling kind of tricked by it, because you built a version of them in your head that does not exist. Right. Like you made a fan fiction of that person based on an incomplete picture. I think that is a billion times more relatable than doesn't it suck that there are child soldiers? Like, I will never go to war if cross my fingers. I will never, there's so many of those things that I just like. It's so weird that we end up doing games and making art in a general sense about these gigantic sweeping classical themes that are absolutely impossible to relate to. Yeah. And when games try to make something that is smaller scale than that, it feels like there is just very little audience for it. And it kind of bums me out. Like, I get it. And I like playing games that are fun and flashy and all that jazz as well. Yeah. But there's just like the number of people, like, I want everybody who cried when Eris died to play this. Yeah. Kinda. Because it's a little bit more real than that, which was action figures who you thought you knew and read a lot into. Yeah. Dying. So I don't know. It gives me a lot to think about, which I love. Like, when I first played it, I thought about it for a long time. When I played it this time, I thought about it. It's still living rent free in my head. Yeah. So incredibly good.
I like it. It's a good game. I'm happy we decided to do it. I think doing the Stanley Parable last year really kind of lit a fire under our ass to get this on here. Cause I know during that episode, we both said like, we gotta go back to that. And I've been wanting to for a while, cause I haven't played it. I have not played it since the first time, since it came out.
Yeah. One of my favorite indies. Super good game. Thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate you. If you have things to say about the beginner's guide, hit us up by May 15th at duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yep. This is the last episode that is going to be the last episode of this show that's going to be going out on the early release feed. So just so you're aware, that is going away at the end of April, and May 1st, moving over to new to some new things there. We're going to be during that first week of May, when people who were on the early release schedule were going to not get anything new because of the changeover. As everybody gets on the same schedule, there's going to be some Watch Out for Fireballs dispatch cleanup episodes that are going out. So keep an eye on those if you are a patron.
Yeah. Also, if you're not a patron, become a patron.
Please do.
You get a bunch of bonus shows and support your boys. We appreciate it. Yeah. There are premium episodes of this show that you get, including the episode on Max Payne 3. It's coming out this month. Yeah. And if you want to hear those, head on over.
Please do.
$5 a month gets you those, as well as Bonfireside Chat and a bunch of bonus stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I changed the topic before we gave how to write in. It's the 15th of April and the 15th of May to write in about those games. Those games that we're covering. So if you have thoughts,
it is well past the 15th of April, my friend.
Oh yes,
May and June.
15th of May. Yes, sorry, May and June. Shit, I've lost a whole month, Gary. 15th of May, 15th of June. May's games, Beginner's Guide, Teardown, and Max Payne 3. Max Payne 3 being the premium one. June's games being The Incredible Hulk: Ultimate Destruction, Terranigma, Another World, and Vampire.
Yes, or Out of This World, if you are on this side of the pond.
Yes.
You may have played it as one or the other. Other than that, ratings, reviews on Apple Podcasts or Podcast Addict are very useful. And that's all the things you need to do. We appreciate you for hearing this at all.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. Come back next week for Teardown, another indie banger. Super excited to talk about that. But until then, watch out for Davies.